Welcome to Fulfillment in Faith, where we will dive deep into self-discovery, empowerment, and manifesting the life you desire. I'm your host, Shannan Mondor, and through my own experiences with addiction, sobriety, and personal growth, I've learned invaluable lessons that I'm passionate about sharing with you. Now let's start creating a life you love. Hello, everybody. My name is Shannan Mondor, and I am your host for my podcast, Fulfillment in Faith. So today, our guest is Jon Emery. Welcome, Jon. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. So, Jon, I want you to tell my audience members a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and then from there, if you can go into your story.
Okay. So a little bit about myself is I am a father of two. I have a dog. I work full time and I run a podcast. And also I can dive in further down the road about my business and stuff. But I enjoy hiking. Something about getting outside. You got to get out there and enjoy the weather and nature. And that's what I really like to do if I could do it all the time, right? So for me, my story, I'll start where I was about 19, 20 years old or whatever. And I like to start here because I want people to kind of get a frame of where I'm coming from. And I don't know if what I'm going to share with you actually created who I am today, changed me in any way through the stuff that I went through. But I wound up leaving home, with my family. And it was me, my mother, my father, and a sister of mine. She's a year younger than me. So I left. My sister decided to go into the Navy, and I moved out into an apartment. I was on my own, had a job and everything. And I don't know the time frame, maybe a couple months after, I moved out, and then my sister decided to go to the Navy. My mom came over, she knocked on my door and she said, "I'm leaving your father," you know, and then, I was shocked, right? And what I came to find out is that they weren't married for a very long time. So they wound up getting divorced when I was young. I don't know how young I was, but I do remember a story my dad told me after the fact that I found out that he said I was 8 and I asked him where his ring was. And he said, "That's your mother and I'm your father. And that's all you need to know," is what he told me. That's what he told me back then. So it was a shock. I couldn't even fathom it. I'm like, they lived together for so long so that me and my sister could grow up and, I guess, in a sense, have a family, but yet they were probably dysfunctional in a way. I'm sure, I would imagine it's got to be tough. Like, and people say do it and don't do it, because it does affect the kids, right? So that might, yeah,
Okay, just a second. I got a question. I'm confused here. So
sure.
your parents were together, they got
Yep.
married, living together, then they were divorced, but still living together?
Yes.
Okay.
Somewhere when I was a young child, they got a divorce.
Okay, yeah, but they still decided to live together to raise the children in a home with
Yes.
mother and father. Okay,
And
okay.
I never knew about the divorce, and they were on their own in a way until I was 18, 19 years
Yeah,
old.
that's a big secret. Wow.
Yeah, and apparently other people knew about it. I just
Okay,
didn't.
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. All right. All right.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of like where I like to start it, because what happened for me was I wound up, getting to know a woman at the time, a young girl, because I was 19 and we met each other then. And we wound up getting married. We wound up having a house. I had a steady job, and we got married and had kids. So I had a job, the same job, from like 18, 19 years old, all the way up till 40, 39. Yeah, 39. Yep. And they decided to close. So it was about 20 years I was there. I was employed there, and I was able to move around in the company a little bit. Uh, And so I lost my job, and for so long I wanted out, right? Like it wasn't for me. Like after a while, I just got tired of doing the same thing over and over again. So I found myself in like self-improvement stuff, listening to podcasts, go figure. And just started to think, how can I improve myself? How can I get out of this? So what I did was I started to do real estate, thinking that would help. And I should have stuck with it, and I just wound up having kids, and I had distractions, so I didn't keep on going with it. Uh, After that, of losing my job, I was like, I felt free. Like I have an opportunity, I have a chance. At first, it was like, oh no, what do we do, right? But
Yeah, yeah, the fear sets in, right? Oh my God,
yeah, it's like,
security.
ah!
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
But then I'm like, yes, I can finally decide a different path. And what that was, I did not know, but I didn't feel like doing a 9 to 5. So at the time, I knew somebody, and I still know him, a guy that does life insurance. And so he's like, oh, I'm trying to bring on a team. So he thought I'd be a good fit. I tried it out, and I enjoyed learning what I needed to know about the insurance industry. I got my license, and I was like, okay, I'll start connecting with entrepreneurs, start to get to know what they are, what they're doing, and what I had to offer would help them more. They would understand it differently than some other people is the idea. So I wound up doing YouTube videos. I wound up, going through all this stuff I never did before, and I found myself to enjoy it. Mind you, this was like a little bit during the COVID time. So the kids were home sometimes from school. They were going to half school or whatever they were doing. So I'd be watching them, and, at night I'd be doing whatever I can to try to get myself out there and try to see about this insurance business. So uh, it came up to about February of that year. So within the same year that I lost my job, uh, there was some issues going on at home in a relationship with me and my kid's mother now. Uh, I wound up finding in May, sitting at the dinner table, and she said she wanted a divorce. So I knew there was a part maybe where it was explained that it was the job. So I wound up shutting down the insurance part, and I wound up getting a job, got insurance, health insurance and stuff like that. And that didn't fix anything, right? And I don't know if you know anything about men, but they try to like, focus on things sometimes. So, I tried to fix everything I could or try to understand, and it was just too late in a way, right?
Mhm.
So uh long story short, it came to that table of divorce, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. You know what I mean? Because I'll be honest with you, for months, like when it was kind of like fuzzy in January, February, I couldn't sleep. I was trying to figure things out. There's a bunch of different behaviors going on that I couldn't understand, and I couldn't understand why uh me losing trust, losing loyalty in somebody else that I knew for almost, I mean, we were married for almost 15 years, been together for almost 20, yeah, about 20, 21 or so. And so like that is what I couldn't understand. So I didn't believe anything that I could find to be wrong. I mean, I didn't want to go searching for wrong. So it took me a while. I lost like 20 pounds. I couldn't sleep at night, and just remember I didn't have a job. So I'm still like stirring around at night, trying to figure things out. And during the day when she wasn't here. So I share that because when January, February, I listened to another podcast that I haven't listened to like in 2, 3 years prior to that. And it's called the Dad Edge. And he might have changed the name by now, but so I listened to it again, and it's like, oh, join this tribe, they call it, of men, right? And they have all these little groups and stuff. And so I don't know what made me say, let's do it. So I did. I never got onto the calls. I wish I did, but I just didn't feel like I had the time where I could spend the energy to sit down and then have my kids at home and try to focus on that at the same time. But I was able to connect with like, I want to say 4 or 5 men, and not nowhere near me. So one in Canada, I'm in Pennsylvania, and another one in Virginia, and another one I think was out west and just recently moved. 3 that I can off the top of my head. There's other men I spoke with, but these were the main 3, and it was a blessing, right? So because I'm trying to figure stuff out, and they're like, well, I think this is what's going to happen. Like one guy said, I think you're going to go through a divorce. Just be ready. I'm like, what? What I mean?
I
He's
got a
like,
question for you though. Were
yeah.
there any flags prior to that? Did she ever, bring anything up to you about, okay, this is bothering me, maybe we need to work on this, there's got to be some sort of sign somewheres. Or were
Yes.
you just so focused on the insurance and all of that that you were just like kind of put it on the back burner?
Okay, so here's what I'll say to that is, yes, I feel like I could have been focused on, because I was like, this is like my job, right? And if I
Yeah.
don't do something here, I won't make money. And I don't think their mother saw that as a way to make money when it wasn't steady,
Okay.
right? That's how I saw the difference there, looking back. Other than that, there might have been small, like, pass through the hallway kind of communication when it should be like, let's sit down and talk about this. And there, it wasn't there. The communication was not there.
Okay.
Uh, and looking, I can see it all. I can see everything now, right?
Now, yeah.
Yeah, but so unfortunately, things drifted where, the, their mother was probably seeking advice from other people, and and that's where other thoughts and emotions and stuff
Mhm.
stirred up,
Mhm.
right? So, and I'm not saying this to bash their mother in any way. That's not what I'm intending. It's just the difference, and looking back and see how things could have changed maybe if we both of us wanted to. And I wanted to in the beginning. Like, I mentioned therapy and stuff, and that was not what she wanted to do. Yeah, so I was talking to these men, and they were kind of guiding me, right? And the one guy, I would consider him like a coach. So I jumped on his one call. He had like a 4-week program. He called it about masculinity or whatever. So there, I found the feminine and the masculine polarity shifts and stuff. I'm like, well, this is interesting, And so I went down that rabbit hole for a little while, and it made sense, right? So I'll be honest with you, like, it was me, him, and another guy on a Zoom call. And like the first two, there was times when I was just like bawling. Like, I'm trying to figure, I just couldn't figure out. Then I think it was the third one, and he said I was different. He's like, you sound better, you look better, and you kind of getting your head back, getting getting it out of your head, right? One of the things he told me was, don't overthink things, like, and just don't dissect stuff, right? And that's what a lot of people do. They keep it in their head and dissect things. So when it came to that moment when she said divorce, I was prepared. And I don't know if I would have been prepared if I didn't talk to these guys, if I didn't go through his 4-week program or whatever to try to see if it was going to help me or not. It was never like, just in case, we're preparing you if divorce comes up. That was not the intention, but I felt like I was in a different frame to say, good, and I did. I said, good, I'm tired of figuring it out.
But you were in a different frame as well too, from the moment that you started to release that energy from your body by you letting it go, by crying and everything, right? So
Yes.
you were already starting to be on your path of healing and releasing, and whatever that releasing aspect meant. So that's why I feel that the word divorce and all of that, you were already prepared for that
Very true. Yeah.
within your body. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So from there on out, I wound up getting a job, we went through a divorce. I wound up getting another job after that, or after it was mentioned, which I currently hold now. And so for me, it's just been, it was a big shift in my life. Like, I never would have thought of going through a divorce. It was never in my head, right? And you know, knowing what my parents did, and I know my dad's side, for most of his side of the family, they all went and got divorces, so that was always like something over my head, like, I'm never gonna, and unfortunately, right now I'm looking back like, hey, this is a blessing in disguise, because I'm doing so much different stuff now than I never would have before, and I can share that with you in a little bit. But some of the things I think that could help people with relationships is definitely communication, definitely sitting down and knowing each other's values and stuff like that. These are the deep dives I've gone through since then. And, you know, uh, really understanding, communicating, connection. I know I said it so many times, but I think that's really the heart of it for people to get to know each other more. And it's not just a yes or no questions, to get these yes or no answers. It's like what and how, and where do you see your life, and now I'm 43, so it's like everything's different now. I feel like I'm almost 20 still.
I
Yeah,
exactly right. And that's one thing with my journey. The more that I went through, the more honest I became with myself, the more that I share with people. So now, what you see is what you get. Like
yeah,
I have nothing to hide anymore, and that's probably the same for you too. You're not afraid to speak your truth. So
yes,
me communicating in a relationship, oh man, I've never been more honest in my entire life. Sometimes I'm actually too honest, but you know what? I can't help it. I have to be my true, authentic self, whatever that is. And if somebody doesn't like it, I know that that's not my problem. That's their problem. That's what they've got to deal with. And if there's a trigger that I spark up in them, that's something that they need to deal with in their past. And that's just the way that I am. And you're the same way.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. So I mean, so for me, my story, after the divorce, I was like, and this is like not just divorce paperwork is filed, right? It's like, okay, we're going our own way, you know. So I start to figure out, well, how am I going to live? How am I going to handle things, And then obviously we'll figure out the kids sometime down the road. But so I wound up going through. For me, it was working on my emotions, mental health in a way. Not that I ever contemplated suicide. Um, but the one guy I know, he did say that 10 men do kill themselves every day because of divorce, and I didn't want to be one of those people. And thankfully, I didn't turn out to be one of them. So when I share this, I hopefully it reaches somebody that might, be thinking that, and they don't do that because there's other reasons to live. So I worked on myself mentally, and what I did was I started a morning routine. Currently, what I'm doing now is meditating for about 10 minutes, nothing crazy. Sometimes you can phase out, sometimes you don't, I also pray. I listen to some kind of positive YouTube video, or, some kind of message in a way, right? And I'll write down what I'm grateful for, three things I'm grateful for every day. And that's what I've been doing for probably a year, if not more now, where it got more concrete. There's probably there's a few things I played with, like journaling and stuff. It's never really been one of those things
Yeah.
that I really stuck to.
I got a question for you. Who's your favorite podcaster?
Who's my favorite
Yeah.
podcast?
Well,
I like Ed Milet.
okay. I absolutely love Rob Dial. Have you listened to Rob Dial?
Yes, yes.
Like he puts out 4 short podcasts a week. I'm
Yeah,
addicted to him. Like
yes.
I follow him on Instagram and everything. I just love his messages are so much like mine. I think that's why I'm so attracted to him, right? And
Yep.
but yeah, you're the same way as me. I've got my morning routines, and I've yeah, like I don't barely watch TV hardly at all anymore. If I'm not doing my work, podcasting, interviews, being interviewed, working on my mentorship, any of that, like I'm listening to a podcast. And I used to be, I used to love Dateline, like listening to Dateline, the podcast and all of that. And now because I'm so aware of my energy, anything that really sucks me down, it's like, no, I don't want to be in that because I was there for years and years, right? That used to be my normal. And it's like, no, I'm not going back there. So that's why, yeah, I only listen to upbeat podcasts like that, anything inspirational. Yeah, but I was curious. I wanted to know who do you listen to? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he's one of them I listened to for a while there too. Yeah, and you're a podcaster too, so we bounce back and forth
Yeah.
every once in
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fun. So looking back at your whole entire journey that you went through, what is the biggest thing that you learned that really stood out for you?
Yeah, so being yourself. I felt like looking back now, I probably was not myself. I got in this mold of going to work every day, doing the same thing over and over again, and then coming home to taking care of the, like, I get it. Like that's what we do, right? Take care of the kids, take care of the house, do a few chores, right? And go to bed and wake up and do it all over again.
Yeah, the hamster wheel. The hamster,
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
get caught up in it and you don't even realize you're in it.
right.
And people live that life day in, day out, day in, day out. And it's so funny. because the young lady that I interviewed earlier today, and then I had a meet and greet with a young lady yesterday as well, and we got talking about that. There's so many times with the work that we do, and then we think to ourselves, oh, why am I doing this? Like, because we do get frustrated, right? It's like, are we making a difference in the world? Because a lot of times we don't even see the ripple effect or anything, right? And the one gal was talking to me about that, where there's days where she gives up, and I'm like, no, you're not going to give up. And the reason I'm going to tell you that you're not going to give up is because you cannot, where you are now, you're so enlightened, you're elevated. Could you ever imagine yourself going back to a 9 to 5 job? And she's like, no, I can't. And I'm like, there you go. And I said, and then she started talking about, I'm sure you've seen that meme or whatever out there too, where, where you wake up in the morning and it's like you start your day out, and then you're excelling, you're doing whatever you're supposed to be doing, right? And the skies basically open up. But then there's some of us that totally quit right before we hit that gold jackpot. So there's the guy digging, and then there's about this much left where there's that pot of gold. And so she was talking about that, and I said that little meme or whatever, knowing that just on that other side, like whether it's an hour away or whether it's a week away, we can't quit, because our jackpot could be there, whether it's celebration of ourselves or whether we're helping somebody else or whatever it is. And that's what always keeps us going. And she's like, I know. She goes, because if I give up, what am I missing out on? And I said, that's always going to push you. That's going to pull. So always remember, just keep going no matter what, because we are making a difference in the world. And I said, and it's people like us. I said, what are we? I go like, we're at like about 2% of the people, which are becoming so enlightened now. And that percentage is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what I love about it. Like how many people have you changed their lives, and now they're doing the exact same work. And that's what happened to that one girl that I was talking with today on her podcast. She was literally had me crying. She goes, because just watching you, listening to you, following you, and she goes, you gave me now the inspiration to write my book. And now she's got big deals and stuff like that's coming up for her. She can't really tell me what's going on, but she's like, this is what started with you, talking with you, connecting with you. And isn't that beautiful how we're changing people's lives?
And sometimes you don't even know it, right?
I know.
And yeah, yeah. You don't know where your podcast is going to go.
I have no idea. I have no
Right.
idea. And there are days where I think to myself, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want to do another interview. I overbooked myself today, but once I get on it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, John. Once you get on it and you're connecting with that individual on that screen, it's like, wow,
Yep.
this makes me feel so good that that person is being vulnerable and is sharing their story on my podcast,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And yesterday I had one come on. I was on one, and I met with somebody for like 20 minutes in between. And I still work a full-time job. So like I'm home by like 5, and I did it to like almost, 4 or almost 9 o'clock at night. So
Mhm.
it's crazy. But yeah, you have those days, and then you have days that you're not doing it and you're focusing on everything else. So, but it's fun. I love it. Um, but yeah, I don't know if we want to go off topic with the whole podcasting thing here yet, but yeah, I enjoy understanding and communicating with people now. And like I said, being yourself, like authentic, has been one of my values I've written down, that's what I want to be, and this is who I am. So with that being said, I like to share real quick. My dad had a bar when I was growing up, like a tavern, and my grandmother. So unfortunately, I think he wound up drinking himself to death, and at a young age. But so I didn't drink until 22, and I never got heavy into it. Yeah, you have those moments, right? But I decided to quit. It'll be almost 2 years now that I haven't had a drink, just because whoever I run into, whoever that person's going to be, they're going to get who I am, not what something else is making me to be. So that was something I wanted to change. And even me showing up for my kids, right? I wanted to, yeah. So that was a big change in my life as well, too.
Yeah, yeah. So along your journey, and especially with the area of communication and the whole marital, which is very sad for the kids. It's sad for absolutely everybody. And there are so many people out there that are living in that hamster wheel of marriage too. And they're doing
Mhm.
it for their kids and whatever. What is the biggest advice that you can give somebody that literally is going through that hamster cycle life of marriage that you did? And what advice would you give them?
I think you should, well, one of the things I learned towards the end was like the day night thing. Like I get that, like having a good time, going out once a week, maybe, nothing crazy, but you have to separate yourself from everything that you've been doing, like work and the kid events and stuff like that. You have to break away. Otherwise, you lose attraction to each other. You don't know who that person is then. You know, uh, their mom could be taking them over here, and you're going over here for some reason, and you just see them at night when you get home, and that's it. You go to bed. Uh,
The reason, and that's so true because like my kids are in full sports. And especially like a lot of times I just see the mom or the dad never together through the whole volleyball season because the other parent is with the child that's at hockey. And that has become everybody's norm now.
Mhm.
It, and we're talking like 5, 6, 7 nights out of the week that parents are running with their kids and they're not even seeing each other.
Yeah, I don't know how you can change that except for maybe both of them go to one and both go to another. You know, um,
Or don't have as many kids.
what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's one thing. And obviously like communication, like, sit down and I'm a well, let's go back to sit down and go into a deep conversation. So you're both on the same page, right? And we all go through this struggle in life. Let's do it together. And the other thing I really learned is focus on the problem, not your partner as being the problem. So like let's focus on this we're in this together to beat this, right? And if you don't have that partner with you that's going to jump in and fight with you, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
uh yeah. And that's the other thing I think. I had something else to share, but that fell off my head right now.
Okay, so now the last question I've got for you, and so we can get back into the podcast mode and everything here because that's your big thing, is where are you now?
Yeah, so where am I now? So I still have a 9 to 5 job, which is what I need to provide, right? And make sure the kids are good. Other than that, besides that, I have a podcast and it's Life's Checkmark. So I have people like yourself, you came on. I didn't launch your episode yet, but it's coming. And they come on, they share their journey in life, whatever it is. I don't really care, right? I mean, I care, but I don't really care what it is. As long as you're going to be open, vulnerable, honest, authentic, any word you want to use to say, like, let's just be real,
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for. And I've had some wonderful guests just like yourself come on, and it allowed me to grow as a person, to understand what they went through and how they went through it. And hopefully it reaches those people, the listeners and the people watching on YouTube, to see how others are doing it, because other people are struggling and nobody's speaking up. Nobody's saying a word that, hey, this is where I'm at. I need help. It's a big problem going on, whatever the problem is you have, but people are not stepping up and saying, I need help, because they're scared. They think society is going to put them down.
Well, and what I like about these types of podcasts too is they're real people sharing their real stories, their thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Yeah.
And I was actually listening to a podcast here about a month ago. It wasn't Rob Dials, it was a totally different one. And there was a psychologist on there talking, and they were talking about podcasts like ours that are popping up, and we're not professionals and we don't have this background education and all this other stuff. And when I'm listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Like, you guys are degrading our podcast, but we're bringing people on to our podcast that are sharing their real life stories.
Right.
And this is what people really need to hear, because it's us that are getting vulnerable, and we're giving these individuals the strength to actually start to share their stories and to heal. And yeah, no, I'm not a professional, But you know what? My feelings are real, and I did something about those feelings to make me heal. And if I can provide one tool, that's all I'm saying is one tool that can get you on the road so that you can start to heal and find the greatest version of yourself within, then damn rights I'm going to continue on with these stories. And I'm going to have people all over the world, which I do, which you do too. You know? So that's why we're here. That's our life purpose, and we know that.
I agree. And it allows you to become a better communicator, a better listener, right? And I found value in connecting other people that have had as guests with other guests. Wherever that connection goes, I'm not so sure, but I've been getting many a thank yous, and see what I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad somebody besides yourself. I know you're in Canada, right? Yeah. So somebody in Canada, I was able to connect them with somebody in South Africa. Now they work together somehow. And, and it's just great to hear stuff like that. So
Yeah, the connections are just amazing. And it's not only just podcasters or whatever, like this through my podcast, I did a meet and greet. That's how I found my TED Talk coach. Like these types of meetings get you in connection with all of these different areas in your life where you're being guided to go.
that's correct.
Yeah, and now I've got a publicist in New York, and like all of these have just come together through all these different connections. And it's amazing. I love it. I love this life because imagine yourself even before you started podcasting, right? Like our world seems so small. And now it's like, oh my God, I'm connecting with people in Australia and England. And, me and my two younger kids were going to England in August. And some of the people that were on my podcast were actually going to meet in person. Like, how incredible is that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fun.
And you already know them, right? You know what
I
I mean?
know, we already know them, right? Now I actually get to actually hug them. Like
Right.
that's amazing.
It
Yeah,
is amazing. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about yourself.
A little bit more about myself.
Yeah, like with your podcasting.
Oh, with the yeah. Yeah, so with the podcast, yeah, so I'll share it. I do launch it once a week. You can watch it on YouTube and stuff like that. And I have a lot in the backlog, so I'll be shooting them out as soon as I can. I keep getting people that want to come on. I don't want to, as long as they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to be real, then I don't want to push them away, right? And
Right.
that one story or journey that they might be able to share might change somebody else's life. That's the mission of mine. So my podcast. But so since I started podcasting, I basically did it on my own. I had to figure everything out along the way. Here's when I was doing the insurance, I did 10 Facebook lives with entrepreneurs. And I met somebody at a breakfast and he was asking, and it was at an event. He's like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" I'm like, "Well, I want to start a podcast." He's like, and I told him about these 10 Facebook lives. And he's like, "Well, just take them, strip them, make them the audio to start your podcast. It's 10 episodes." And I sat on it for like 6 months. And then I figured out how to do it. And then I launched. And it's not you can listen to my intro, my episode 0. It was not my focus, but it was enough to get me going. And then that's when I started to go, this is what Life's Checkmark really is, right? And everybody started lining up to be guests. But that's what got me going. So I created a course, I created a community, and I'm coaching people to go through and start a podcast. There's a reason, there's a desire that people like yourself and I chose to start one. And I want to see that happen to these people that, have that desire. So I want to be that person to hold them accountable to keep going. Right. So I've been doing this for about 1.5 years and I'm not going to stop. I enjoy it so much. I'm learning more with AI. I'm learning more with, connecting with people, trying to meet up with them in person. And, I just want to grow. So I want to see other people start a show and grow. I was talking to somebody yesterday on their podcast about the statistics and stuff. I think it's episode 10 or 20 where, people don't even make it that far, or they might do one and they just shut down because they didn't line up 10 episodes. And that's what I want.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like, it's 10 or 20. If you get past that, you're in the top 1% of the podcast. Not like number of downloads or something, but that you're still going, right? That you're still active. That's where it's at. So the latest I know is there's 700,000 active podcasts that keep launching every week. There might be the ones that do the seasons and stuff,
Yeah.
but they're not always as active, so they don't always count sometimes. But there's millions of podcasts out there, and that's what people are afraid of. They're like, well, everybody's got podcasts. No, I mean, how many realtors are out there? I don't know. How many
Yeah.
lawyers are there, right? There's millions of them, right?
Yeah. There's an abundance for everything if you
Yes.
have that will, desire, and faith in yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Just keep going, right?
Just keep going. Just keep believing in yourself, and it's going to come to you. Law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
I told this person that was on the podcast yesterday, I said, I didn't start to create an audience. I just wanted to get to know people and how they dealt with things. And it just grew from there. And that's how I look at it. So I started with not anticipating people to listen, right? I just wanted to start something.
See,
And
you're like me. I don't worry about the amount of people that are listening. I worry about people telling their story so people have the opportunity to listen if they want to.
Absolutely. I love it. That's a good way to put it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
in all of the podcast notes, this is where Jon's information is going to be. So can people just contact you through the information if they want to get on your podcast?
Yeah, if they want to get on my podcast, the best way would be my email. So that'd be the best way. And then if they want to check out what I have to offer with, starting their own podcast, that's lifescheckmark.com. They can also watch the podcast on YouTube and, subscribe and download it on Spotify, Apple, and all those other ones out there.
Perfect. Perfect. Is there any final words that you would like to say to the audience members?
Yeah. I've said it before, be yourself, do what you love, enjoy life, and don't give up, right? So remember why you started. So, because there's going to be that point where you go, I'm going to stop. It's not taking me anywhere. And you just said it, that gold, you're talking about gold and stuff. And it's just right around the corner. It's just that one more, one more thing you got to do. So yeah, don't quit. Don't.
Yeah, be strong with that. What if, what if, what if? So, Jon, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to your story and your journey and everything. And you and I always have such great conversations, though. We can always just talk on.
I know.
Oh my God, we talked a lot before we even got on this podcast and started recording. So no, I want to thank you so much for, us getting to know each other. And I know there's always going to be a connection between you and I, just being on my podcast and really being a part of my journey. Like, you make my world an absolutely better place. And I want to thank you for that.
Same here. And I appreciate that. And thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Fulfillment and Faith. If you're ready to take your faith and empowerment to the next level, connect with me at shannanmondor.com. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Together, we can create the lives we love. Until next time, stay empowered and keep the faith.